Hi, my name is Tori Fisher, and the sport I have been analyzing is women's collegiate artistic gymnastics for strength and conditioning testing recommendations as shown in this presentation. So given my needs analysis, I have determined that all planes of motion are used in gymnastics and all musculature is used. Therefore, a full body focus is needed, although a little bit more emphasis on lower body, given they produce their power and strength primarily from their lower body. And given the duration of events are anywhere from 7 seconds to 1:30, the systems used for energy are ATP, PCR, and anaerobic glycolysis. So for warm-ups and strength training, they will always need a dynamic warm-up, utilize explosive and fast movements, maintain their mobility and balance, and also focus on some muscle balances I will talk about later in this presentation. So for athletic tests, before determining what type of test I was going to use, I looked at Most Gets et al. Article, which looked at the physiological demands of gymnastics, which determined that power, speed, metabolic conditioning, motor skills, some flexibility and mobility, and strength are the areas gymnasts need most. So therefore, for my testing goals, I want to challenge these areas as well as all the musculature, energy systems utilized, and movement patterns, and then analyze from the data of my battery test to develop an exercise prescription which will challenge gymnasts but not overtrain them for supercompensation to occur, and also prevent injuries from some exercises I want to incorporate. So for athletic tests, I have listed them in the order they should be implemented. So first, for a non-fatiguing test, the start excursion balance test with 8 points A through H as seen below, with tape which will be laid out. Athletes will stand on one foot, and then have their free foot reaching out as far as they can on the tape, touching the area, then coming back to balance and center to be counted as an attempt. If they lose balance, it would not count. And they would do this in all 8 directions on both legs. So 16 measurements would be taken. This test is important because it challenges dynamic balance, flexibility, mobility, and motor coordination, as in floor exercise and balance beam specifically, flexibility and mobility elements are included. So it gives information on imbalances on the dominant leg compared to the non-dominant leg, as well as weaker movement patterns. And as seen by Brussel et al., the risk of ankle injury is increasingly higher if they do not reach a certain threshold on the measurement for women and men. So as you can see, ankle injuries for my needs analysis are a big deal in gymnastics, and we want to prevent those. So in my exercise description, I would include more single leg work, like single leg RDLs, glute bridges, squats, and also incorporate Bosu ball with some of these exercises to further challenge their base support and work these intrinsic ankle and foot muscles. So secondly, I would do a power battery test, which would be the counter movement jump test, or the CMJ. To perform this, athlete would stand on the force plate and squat stance, hands on hips instead of swinging them, and they jump as high as they can from the eccentric down phase of the squat, and they would rest for about 30 seconds at least between tests, which would be done 3 times to calculate their average jump height. And this test is very important, as seen by these norms from the testing and prescription textbook by Gibson et al., as women's jump height and power can be calculated from this test. And I would most likely be looking at the 20 to 29-year-old range with collegiate gymnasts. So this test is important because it tests explosive power capacity. And this is very important for transfer power and landings after skills, as either they will have to absorb a landing or use their power to go into another flip or jump and control this as well. And this test uses the quadriceps, hamstrings, gastrocnemius, and soleus mainly. And this test can also be done unilaterally as compared to the bilateral picture shown above. And I would do both because by just getting power output, it's good, but with a single leg, you can get intralimb asymmetries. And therefore I could prescribe more prescription of exercises incorporating the hamstrings to be better quadricep to hamstring ratio, as the NCAA concluded that having a greater quad strength compared to hamstring gives higher incidence of ACL injuries. So for a third test, the power and strength test, which is the 1 repetition max power clean. To perform this in a protocol done by James et al., they had a warm-up period with warm-up sets between 30 to 50% 1 rep max for 3 reps. Then they would load the bar between 70 to 90%, what they thought was a 1 rep. For 1 rep, they would do this. Then they would begin a maximal attempt, and they'd have a 3 to 5 minute recovery period after each attempt. And if this is successful, they would add about 5 more pounds. And another attempt is allowed after one failed. Once you have 2 failed, that is your 1 rep max. And I would use this to understand their ability to move weight under tension and at a higher velocity compared to a back squat to the lower velocity. And in gymnastics, a lot of the times they are moving fast under great amount of power and need great amount of strength. And also uses upper and lower body musculature as seen in the muscles involved below. And information given from the test is about coordination and ability to move an external load, as I kind of mentioned. And so from this, I would be able to challenge both the musculature and perform exercises accordingly with the run rep max of power clean, which I want to include. And also upper body and lower body plyometric strength can greater be enhanced to help power and strength. So for the 4th test is a sprint test, which is a 30-meter sprint. And I compared this to a couple articles like Van Drope et al., which only did a 20-meter sprint for gymnasts. Although a vault length is 25 meters, that's why I picked 30 meters to kind of surpass this and expand a little bit. And this would test the ATP PCR system and give information about how they're able to create speed and power in a short duration. And I can also somewhat look at gait abnormalities if I'm not the one just taking the timer from when they start to finish. And therefore, I could use more lunge patterns and exercise to help these gait and sprint, and also do more drills with running and sprinting to be like vault, and also transfer their power. So for the 5th and final test I have chosen, it's an anaerobic capacity test of a 300-yard shuttle run. To perform this, I would mark out 25 yards with lines or cones, and the athlete would start running and the timer would start, and they do 6 round trips. And when they finish crossing each line with their hands or feet, the timer would stop. This test is important because it tests speed, agility, and endurance. And given the time duration as for average women finish between 60 and 80 seconds, the anaerobic system is challenged and is a fatiguing test, as they will have do this once, have 5 minutes of rest, and then do it one more time with an average of 2 times. And I would additionally take RPE at the end of each test to have a greater understanding of their anaerobic capacity, because this could tell me their ability and readiness to complete floor routines, balance beam routines, and bars routines, which are way more fatiguing than a 7-second routine. So I'd be able to prescribe things like sled drills and also other shorter time rest periods between exercises. So given these are the battery tests I would run, and here are my references.